this is one that you reviewed on your own. It's All American Muslim Girl by Nadine Jolie Courtney.
So I came across this book sort of by accident when I was looking for another book. The title grabbed me, so I decided to take a look-see and see what this book was all about. It's definitely young adult. It's classified as such. And it's a great book about, a teenage girl who's looking for her identity based on what she's come to know throughout her young life between her parents, the media, and basically all the major factors that affect her life. I send this to both of you today in terms of, I think the first chapter really does a great job of providing the essence of the novel in terms of all those themes. And it just grabbed me from chapter one.
And what happens in that first chapter?
So chapter one is a very sort of typical second generation immigrant story, especially for a Muslim side, in terms of, she's with her family and they're getting on an airplane to go see more family. And there's a news bulletin that comes up for a shooting or a terrorist event. And, her first thought is for the victims. And her second thought is, please let it not be a Muslim person because she's Muslim and she doesn't want to deal with that. All the things that go with it, especially at an airport, and she, basically not wanting an incident. And she gets one in the form of a gentleman who's sitting next to her father. And her father takes a call from his mother, her grandmother, and speaks in Arabic, and the gentleman next to her gets very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and
everyone gets pretty spooked.
So this whole first scene is about her having to defuse a situation on an airplane with, with her wits between her father and this gentleman without anything actually being named or brought out in the open in terms of sort of almost like a boogeyman in the background that she has to navigate. And the author does a fantastic job of going through all the range of emotions she has and what she has to put aside, what she has to put up front, and all of that even before the plane lands.
Yeah, that first chapter is a really great setup to the entire book. But the rest of it has a lot to do with the main character, Aliyah, this young girl in high school, giving an effort into connecting with her Muslim heritage and learning to reconnect with the religion, which her parents are not particularly religious. Her dad is kind of a-religious. He's a professor at a university, and he's quite the complicated character. You want to talk about him? Because he's a big part of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, from the first chapter in the book, we get an idea of who he is and how he is in terms of, coming to America at the age of 18, background being, Middle Eastern or Syrian. And on top of all of that, it's funny because I didn't really realize this until more recently that, he's a professor at University of American History. So you have this
I didn't catch that either. That's funny. Okay.
Yeah, this is the duality of it, right? Like, the first scene he's being accused of not being American, and literally his PhD is in All-American history. So it's another sort of point to the author that they do a great job of sort of putting these little details that affect the storyline so much. But he basically has learned to sort of try to blend in as much as possible, and assimilate would be the right word. He's not so interested in religion. But again, it's juxtaposed against the asymmetry of him being the head of the family, right? His father has passed away, so he's the de facto head of the family, but he's not religious. So again, you see this in chapter 2, I think it is, where, he's slightly uncomfortable around his family because, they expected him to be a certain way, but he's not. He married, somebody who's not of the same race as he is, so you have interracial thing, and that's something else that Ali struggles with in terms of how does all of this sort of fit in with who I am.
The way we've been talking about this book makes it sound like quite a heady exploration of Islam and identity, and it is that, but a big part of it is it's still YA, right? It's young adult.
Exactly.
And it follows a romance between Aliyah and this young boy that she meets, who, as a bit of a plot twist pretty early on, so it's not really a spoiler, ends up being the son of a guy called Jack Henderson, who is a conservative political pundit who's famous across the country. Jack Henderson, guys, is Tucker Carlson. Basically, this is like fan fiction of a Muslim American girl dating Tucker Carlson's daughter. which is actually done really well. The character of Jack Henderson is my favorite character in all of this because he's not like pure evil. He's actually quite charismatic in a weird way, like charming.
Yeah, it's almost like educated bigotry, right? I mean,
yes, educated bigotry. Exactly. That's so well put.
So, I mean, like, again, he's mentioned in chapter 1, and just the name of his, just his show is what, Jack Attack, and you already know this guy's gonna be trouble, right?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of foreshadowing on the author's part, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is a story of a girl that's trying to fit in, right? I mean, I think this book really stands out because of the title and as well as because of the Islamic content. But she's trying to fit in, given all the things that she's been dealt. And again, the book stands out, which is great, but it's a very light touch, as you said. This is not, a deep look at Islam or something, but more about the journey of how to explore something you don't quite understand and where you would go for it. And in this case, it's, the content is Islam based. So it was truly fascinating for me, because I think even in chapter 1, we see this sort of concept of, if you're a Muslim, then you have to be X, Y, and Z. And these are all the check marks, which we don't really associate with any other religion, that people in Islam can be on different spectrums. And I think the book does a great job of exploring that.
And it explores that through this after school club that Aliyah joins, which is a bunch of other Muslim girls from the community. And it's basically a Quran study group. And it's so interesting to me as someone who I know quite a bit about Islam, but to hear the debates happening within the religion is fascinating, because just like Christianity, just like Hinduism, just like Judaism, any other religion, there are contradictions and debates and interpretations that people will fight tooth and nail over. Aliyah has a boyfriend. She's Muslim. She's like, it's kind of debatable whether halal dating is really halal, right? And that's a huge part of this book.
It really is. I mean, I keep going back to chapter 1 just because it does such a good job of bringing so many concepts in such a short amount of time, right? I mean, the chapter 1 sort of ends with the first experience she's had with sort of racism, where her father is trying to just buy groceries, and the cashier is basically questioning who he is and how he is, because his name is Muhammad Abraham, and he's got wine or liquor or something in some sort of alcohol in but that he has as part of his groceries. So right off the bat, we see this sort of duality or spectrum of what it means to be Muslim and practicing, non-practicing, and we get a deep dive of that, as you said, and in further chapters, especially with this girls Quran group. And even that whole concept is so interesting because number one, they're all girls, they're all talking about religion, and it's one of those taboo subjects where we don't really think about that a lot in general.
I appreciated this book. I will say that if you go online and look at reviews, pretty controversial book, especially from devout Muslims. This is something that I saw. Quite a few people very mad at the concept of even questioning changing and evolving the religion, or even reinterpreting the context of the Quran. Like, quite controversial. Still an important book because at least it's sparking those conversations, right? Final thoughts, Aamer?
No, I mean, it's a fun book. There's a lot of humorous moments, and I definitely wanted to bring that to the light because, I mean, ultimately this is a young adult book. It's a very light touch. It's very easy to read. It's very easy to laugh. There are great, deep dive sort of subjects mixed with it, but overall, I really enjoyed this book.